We have not seen children converse before or seen people. Okay, not what you do. Now, if you have seen someone giving an assistance to a child before that is conversing, you can just tell us your experience, what you saw. Let's see if we're on the same page or we can learn from what you are saying.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, we are listening. Can go on. Okay. So it seems, okay, let's just go on. Now, if a child is conversing, what you need to do is you have to first know what has really caused that child to converse. And in conversion, we said what causes that is rise in temperature above 38 degrees Celsius. So once that happens, it sends excessive heat to the child's brain. And that makes the brain start sending negative signals, and that causes the child to convulse. So as a skilled first aider, the only thing you need to do is to what? Control that temperature by getting a cold compress and applying it on the head. Convulsion itself is not a sickness. It's an aftermath effect of an ailment, either high in temperature, high rise in temperature, or maybe fever, malaria, and all that. And pneumonia could also cause convulsion. I know pneumonia hates water on the ribs. So if you don't have warm water to maybe apply on the ribs while you're applying the cold compress, you can cover the child with clothing and then you apply that cold compress and it ceases that child's convulsion symptoms. So the only thing you need to do is to transport that child to the nearest medical facility after arresting or bringing down the child's temperature. So aftercare means you keep reassuring the casualty and you provide psychological support. We have lost so many people. Someone is currently in jail because still serving his jail term now because of this aftercare. A friend came to the house and then the friend was sick. And then they went out together, got some drugs, and then he gave it to the friend. And then he went into his room, slept, and the friend went into his own, visitor's room and slept. All through the night, he didn't check up on the friend, only for them to discover in the morning the friend died close to the door. It could be that there was a reaction maybe midnight from the drugs he took, and he was trying to maybe call for help from his friend. Because for him to crawl up to the door level to die, it means he was trying to call for an assistance. And if this friend was conscious enough to check in intervals on the same person he has given drugs and all that, maybe he would have noticed that and rushed him to the hospital. And because there were just the two of them in the house with no CCTV camera recording. And the worst part was these same friends had a misunderstanding months back, and the family of the guy who died knew about this misunderstanding. But when they reconciled, the family of the guy never knew that these friends have reconciled. And to them, they thought he used that same this thing and poisoned his friend to death. And there was no way he could defend himself than going to jail. So always advise for any assistance you are giving, don't just say because I've assisted this person, everything is done. You have to carry out aftercare. Check on what you have done. We had an issue like that in National Hospital where they were transporting casualties from Beggar Roundabout to National Hospital, and then the guy died on reaching the hospital. And the same friends were like, why this same person will have bandaged the blood, we stopped the bleeding and everything. What happened? What happened was, as they left Beggar Roundabout, they kept this guy at the back seat. And what they tied was not too strong. It loosened up and the guy started bleeding, secondary bleeding started. And they were just in front. To them, they wanted to quickly rush this guy and didn't take note of the aftercare of watching over this guy while they were transporting. And the guy lost so much blood that he went off. So it's always important you check up on casualties after you must have done that. What happens between the accident scene or the emergency scene to the hospital is the aftercare we are talking about. You must carry out all this and then report. We say you take note of your actions and provide further medical aid. For every emergency, it's not everybody that is on field. You will see a casualty that is on field in the next 2 or 3 minutes, the same person that was shouting or talking may not talk again, may go unconscious. And doctors are not spirit. When you transport casualties to the hospitals, these doctors always, they are not spirit. They always ask you these questions. What has happened? And if you are not able to pull off information from this casualty and you reach the hospital and they ask you, and someone who is having stomach ache, you end up telling the doctor it's headache that the person was having before going unconscious. They may start with treatment for headache. And it's when the treatment is not working, they may resort to tests that will show them that it's stomach ache. But by that time, you have already spent money. And it depends on what happens. That person will be long gone before those lab results may come out. Doctors are not spirit. They work with riches. They report you first aiders bring. They are experienced in field and the lab results they get. So they act on this treatment. If they are able to give a good report, the doctors may end up salvaging that situation. We gave an award to a volunteer in Lagos because of this report. What happened? A woman in the market, Balogun market, started shouting, this moi, this moi. So the first aider rushed to him and asked, "Madam, what happened to moi?" He said, this moi she took her. Madam, where are your children? The woman gave the address. He said, "What about your husband?" Before she could say anything, she collapsed. So he quickly rushed her to the hospital. The same thing I said. The doctors asked what happened. He said the woman had her stomach complaining of moi, and then collapsed. So quickly the doctors started with treatment for poisoning, and it started working. He quickly told the 3 children, it was a August holiday, so the children were at home, 3 children. And the woman said this is where she stays, and then that can they give an ambulance so that they can check up on the children. And the hospital was able to release the ambulance. On reaching the house, the children were lying in different corners of the room. We rushed the 3 children to the hospital, started the same treatment for poisoning, and the children started resuscitating. Not up to an hour, the husband was rushed to the same hospital. Luckily for that man, and the question they asked the colleagues in the hospital of the man, that what happened to the man? The only answer they could give was that they don't know what happened, that the man just collapsed that way when walking. Luckily for him, the doctor on duty discovered the facial resemblance of one of the child with the man, and they started the same treatment, and they were able to resuscitate the family of 5. Now, take for instance, this guy was not able to gather this report of the children address and all that. Definitely, those children would have been long gone. And then the husband coming in before they could have rushed tests and all that. Depending on how the poison have gone to the system, the man would have been long gone even before the test result would have shown that yes, it's actually poison that was made him to go unconscious. So report is very important in an emergency scene. Always take report. It's always important you take the next of kin to that person, and then you also gather information like where the person stays and all that. So once an emergency happens, there are so many some hospitals you rush into, they will tell you you have to drop a deposit before someone will be treated, and there may be money lying somewhere that could assist this person. But if you're not able to extract vital information like the nearest contact to that person, the person may be long gone before help will arrive. So it's important we do that. So let's go forward. Okay, we have already talked about priorities of treatment. So for those who maybe didn't get us very well, if you're approaching an emergency scene, you first assess for consciousness, you go in for bleeding, burns, broken bones, and other conditions. And we say in a case of multiple injuries, the person with the multiple case of injury gets attended to first. Order of priority. Do we have first aid kits? Personal first aid kits, or workplace first aid kits, or car first aid kits? Do we have? If you have, you can just say yes. Okay. Now, if you watch our first aid kit, it's all dry. For any liquid you are introducing to a first aid kit, you must be trained on how to use it. Some people, the spirit or the hydrogen peroxide they see in kits, once they have a small cut, the next thing is they pour it on it. When it starts forming, they say, this one is original. It's not original, you are killing your skin. We don't use such things on fresh wounds. What we use is disinfectants. We'll treat that when we get to bleeding. But a normal first aid kit is supposed to be dry. If you're introducing any liquid inside, you must be trained on how to use that liquid. So any question before we go forward from where we started and stop now? Any question? If there are no questions, we'll continue. Okay, we're on actions at emergencies. This will take us to our first practical session. We said there are certain actions that are required of a first aider during emergencies. Such actions are compulsory and mandatory for you first aiders to take cognizance of. Otherwise, instead of saving lives, the first aider may end up becoming a casualty. So we have these actions that guides all skilled first aiders in what? Carrying out emergency scenes. Emergencies at once they happen. So now, if you're not getting anything from this training, please, you have to get this particular acronym. Because for all your life as a first aider, this acronym guides you in all your emergency response. So I will pause here and then I will go in to the practical sessions. So as we So if you have a pen or you have a tablet, you can just type in this. So when I start explaining, you understand from the Dr. ABCD principle what we are doing as I'm explaining. So we have Dr. ABCD. The D stands for danger, R stands for response, A stands for airway, B stands for breathing, C stands for chest compression, and D stands for defibrillator. Now, these actions are carried out on an emergency scene to know, one, if your casualty is unconscious, breathing, or unconscious, not breathing. Because you don't give CPR. You don't give CPR to someone who is unconscious, still breathing. Rather, you place such people in recovery position. And you only do chest compression to casualties who are unconscious, not breathing. So we'll go into the practical sessions now so you can see for yourself. All right. Can you all see me? Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can see you. Go ahead.
All right. So now we have the Dr. ABCD principle. The D stands for danger. You can bring the camera down. So we have a casualty here. We have a casualty here. Anything could trigger this casualty to go unconscious. And it's right for you as skilled first aiders to know what has really happened to this casualty. And for you to achieve that, you have to carry out actions at emergencies, which is Dr. A, B, C, D. Now, the D stands for danger. It means for every case of emergency, you have to check for danger. Danger for yourself, danger for the person who is involved, danger for those who are around. Because we say in every case of emergency, the number of people who usually come to view triple those who usually come to assist. So it's important to check for all this. To check for all this. And how do you do that? We say in checking for danger is either you remove danger from the casualty or you remove the casualty from danger. And how do you do that? We said, now take for instance, I was with him in the room and we were watching a football match. And then I went out to get soft drinks for us to take and enjoy. And then on coming in, I saw him lying this way. First aid says, if this person is my brother, my wife, or my sibling, I'm not expected to just quickly rush and touch it. What if, as I stepped out, he was maybe updating the match details to his friends? He was updating the match details to his friends online who were not watching the match live. And then at a point, someone heard shout in the town and asked him online that who has scored now, who is winning? And then he wanted quickly typing who was winning to his friends online. And then he discovered that his phone battery was going low. And then he quickly went to plug it. And maybe at the point of doing that without rushing nature, we had a naked wire. Maybe the extension was caught with the naked wire. Because of that rushing nature, he quickly rushed and then touched the naked wire. What will happen? He will receive an electric shock. And if I come in that way and I rush without checking for danger and touching, the next thing is what? I will receive an electric shock also. So nobody will be there to assist. So first aid says when you approach, check. Now in this case, I've seen his hand there. So what I'll do is I'll quickly switch off the power source. And once I've done that, I've remove danger from me. Now, some accidents happen sometimes on the highway and all that, and the place may be too tight. Like the last one that happened on the nature way. Mokopolo had an accident on the bend, and then people rushed into help. An incoming trailer, not knowing what was happening at the bend, came in, smashed those who were involved, those who came to view, and even those who came to assist the casualties. So the right thing we need to do at that point is what? You move that casualty to a safer location before what? Attending to that casualty. If you have done that, you have what? Remove casualties from danger. The next response is what? Is to respond. That's elicit a response from this casualty. You are done with the D now. You are on the R, which is what? Eliciting for response. You elicit for response from this casualty. And how do you elicit for response? We say you use the COWS method. And in COWS method, we say C stands for can you hear me? O stands for open your eyes. W stands for what's your name? S stands for squeeze my hand. And then, how do you do that? We said you, with your own hands here, you tap on the casualty's shoulders, gently tap. Can you hear me? Open your eyes. What's your name? And then you do something like this. And you say, squeeze my hand. The last one I did, the lady did something like this. She was unable to squeeze my hand, but she did something like this. With that, I knew she was what? Unconscious, still breathing. Now, the reason why we are carrying out all this is for what? To us to know if the casualty is unconscious breathing or not. If the casualty is in stupor, it means the casualty is unconscious breathing. If the casualty is in coma, it means the casualty is unconscious, not breathing. So as skilled first aiders, what do you do when you notice any sign? You have to quickly place that person in the recovery position. And you know our universal language of communication is English. But you may be responding to a casualty that doesn't understand English. That's why we say you tap the shoulders. Because there's some casualties, as you tap, open your eyes, instead of their eyes opening, is a hands that will flip open and close. Sometimes you see the legs moving. So at any point, that's why we say you carry blue check. Blue check means you check from the head to the toe, from the toe to the head as you are listening for that response. If the casualty responds on any side, you stop and place in recovery position. If the casualty doesn't respond, then you move to the next acronym, which is A. airways. We say in every emergency, there's presence of shock, and depending on that shock rate, it causes collapse of airways. And that's why most times when you approach an emergency scene, you see people lying with their hands this way, or this way. It's important as skilled first aiders, once you approach that, you must do everything possible to open up the casualty's airways. If not, you may be working on the casualty that will be long dead. So how do you open airways? Say with your two hands, you go to the head, and then with this at the chin, you do what we call the gentle chin lift. Once you do that, the airway is what? Cleared. And then you go to the next acronym, which is B, checking for what? Breathing. In checking for breathing, you know, in normal medical sciences, they said you check for pulse, but there are some casualties when they go unconscious, it's very difficult for you to get their pulse. So what do? We said you use the acronym LLF in checking for breathing. And how do you do that? We said the first L means you are looking for this casualty's chest rise. The second L, you are listening to any noise from the casualty's mouth or nose. And then the F, you are feeling for any breath from the casualty's mouth or nose. And you do that with your head facing the body this way. You do that with your head facing the body this way. What are you doing? If your head is facing this way, you are doing the three things. You are looking for chest rise, you are looking for listening for any noise from the casualty's mouth or nose, and you are feeling for breath at the same time. So you do that for about 5 to 10 seconds to know if the casualty is breathing or not, because this is a state at which takes you to the CPR, which is the chest compression. So you must be sure your casualty is actually breathing. It's not breathing before you go to chest compression. The casualty is breathing at this stage. You have to take that casualty position. Okay. So let's check our casualty for 10 seconds to see if our casualty Okay, for this casualty, the chest is not only rising, the stomach is also rising. And the air is not just warm, it's very hot. There is nothing but what? Conscious. If you should try any compression on this casualty, the two of you will end up fighting. So what you do, once you discover this casualty is breathing, you have to place it in the position. The first aider can watch emergency scene from any side. The important thing is the side at which you are approaching. This hand goes gently to angle 90. You pick up this hand. The reason why we don't play this part of the palm of the chin board, this part. When people go unconscious, this particular part of the palm go, and then this becomes warm. So what even needs to resuscitate fast is warm. So you don't place this part of the palm on the chin board, the back part. So you place and you must hold it. Because if you leave this body part working with another part, the casualty hand will fall back. Close here and go. Now the legs this way, you have to lift it up to level. So there are some casualties you discover that are very busty and fast. If you start turning them, you end up falling and you become a casualty yourself. But once the legs are up this way, you can easily move this casualty to the side without having any difficulty. So with these legs up there, I'll move back a little and more. Turn over this casualty to this side, fully. Gently to this side. If the legs are hanging, you have to bring it down for support. And then you go back and then you open up the airways again. With this, the chest is totally off from the ground and normal breathing starts. So once the airway is open, you check again. Now the angle 90 you open at this initial stage. I told you the lady that did something like that place her in position. Now up to 10 minutes, one chinchin fell out of her mouth. When she got, I asked her, Madam, why one chinchin? She said at the point of the accident happened, she wanted eating her teeth. So as she threw it inside the mouth, the accident happened. So the chinchin didn't come out, the chinchin didn't go in. So most times when people eat on transit and emergencies happens, like they don't announce themselves, anything they are eating gets stuck in their trachea. So whatsoever that is stuck, once the person is placed in the correct position, that enables the person to breathe or resuscitate. whatever is blocking the trachea, they tend to throw it out at the angle 90 position open at the initial stage. So this is the best position to place casualties who are unconscious, still breathing, to help them what recover. We call it the recovery position. All right. Now, in some cases, you check for danger, you elicit for response, you open airways, you check for breathing, the casualty is not breathing. So definitely you have to give what we call CPR. CPR meaning stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's a combination of 30 chest compressions and 2 rescue breaths to your casualty to enable the casualty to resuscitate. Now, CPR is divided into 3. We have the adult CPR, we have the infant CPR, and we have the children's CPR. Now, our age bracket in first aid differs. Adults, their first aid age starts from 15 and above. Our children starts from 14 to 1 year. And then from 0 to 1 year, we term them infants in first aid. Above 1 to 14, we call them children. And from 15 years and above, we call them adults. Why is it so? Medical scientists discovered that from 0 to 14 years, once an infant or a child goes unconscious, there's no reserved oxygen at all in the system. But once, from 15 years and above, once an adult goes unconscious, there's about 10 to 15% reserved oxygen still lying low in the system. So for CPR to be effective, for a child or an adult, a child or an infant, you have to give 5 initial rescue breaths to the infant or the child before compressing the chest. But for an adult, because they already have reserved oxygen, you just compress straight up with 30 chest compressions and the 2 rescue breaths. Now, if I were to put a ratio now, we'll say our infant and children ratio of CPR is 5:30. That's 5 chest rescue breaths, 30 chest compressions, and 2 rescue breaths. That's for child and infant. Therefore, adult is what? 30 chest compressions and 2 rescue breaths.
Sabib, how is it now? You're on today. Okay, hold on now. Thank you.
Please, if your mic is your mic should be muted so everyone can get us well. So, why do we do that? Because children and infants don't have reserved oxygen. Give those 5 initial rescue breaths before we compress. If someone has driven a manual car before, you agree with me that if that car is a carburetor engine, and maybe you get just 15 liters of petrol and introduce to that car, and maybe you drive without watching your gauge and the whole petrol gets finished. If you introduce just 5 liters into that car, it will not start immediately. But if you get little PMS and pour it on the carburetor and try starting your car, you see the car starts faster. So the little PMS you are pouring on that carburetor to make the car start faster is the rescue breath you are introducing to either an infant, adult, or a child. And they try to start your car with your key is the compression you are doing. So normally what we start the heart is the chest compression. But what aids it to restart faster is the rescue breath you give. Now let's take this as our adult. How do you compress the adult? We said at the center of the chest is where you compress. And what does compression is the heel of your palm and not this part. If you are to compress an adult, the heel of your palm goes there. And for an adult, you use 2 hands to compress. For an infant, you use 2 fingers to compress. And for a child, you use 1 hand to compress. But you agree with me that there are some children of 13 years looking like adults of 16. For such children, though they are children, you give the 5 initial rescue breaths, but your hand compression will be 2. But you're supposed to compress his chest 1/3 deep. So if you are using just 1 hand on a child that is looking like an adult, you may not achieve that. So what you do is, for some children, you still give the 5 initial rescue breaths of no harm to either a child or an adult. But in your compression, you use 2 hands to compress that child that is looking like an adult. How do you now place your hand? You said at the center of the chest, and then you lock it up with your left hand. If you're someone who makes more of your left heel goes there and your right locks it up. But the important thing is whichever hand that you use more should be at the center, and then this locks it up. And if you are doing compression, don't stay far from the casualty compressing. You may be stressing your spine and you may not get that 1/3 depth. So for you to achieve that depth and not stress your spine, you have to go closer to the casualty and push in your body. And for you to push in your body, you have to lock your joints. So compression is done this way and not this way. So you compress 30 times. Remember, the airway is open. So how do you compress? Let's go. This is an adult. So let's compress. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 30. Immediately you reach the 30, you have to introduce rescue breath, the one some people call kiss of life. Now, because of infection and all that may arise, and COVID-19 that may arise on you, we don't advise skilled first aiders to make direct contact with casualty's mouth or when introducing rescue breath, because you may end up getting an infection and all that, because you don't know who you are attending to. So we advise, if you have a first aid kit, we have what we call the mouth guard. The mouth guard has an opening at the center that can insert in the casualty's mouth and introduce your air without having direct contact with the casualty. But doesn't mean if you don't have that, you should not save life. You can fold your hands this way. Remember, I told you the air needed in the system is just as little as a little petrol you pour on your carburetor. So what you did is you fold your hands this way and place it on the casualty's mouth, and you can still introduce air into the system. So let's see how you introduce. When introducing, this hand goes on the nose. You close up the nose and introduce. If you watch when I was introducing, I close. Why? Because if I should introduce air and this nose is not closed, everything will escape from the nose. And at the same point, I cannot hold this nose still. But there's some casualties, when you introduce the rescue breath, they want to sneeze and all that. And if you are holding their nose constant, they may not have that energy to do that. So what do? You release it immediately when you introduce, and then you hold again, release, and then you check for your ALF. That you are looking for the chest rise, listening for any noise, and feeling for one breath. If there's no response, then you have to repeat sequence again. If this is a child, the only thing I need to do is give the 5 initial rescue breaths. And then I will use one hand to compress the chest. But if the child is looking like an adult, then I'll have to use 2 hands at this point. Compress 30 times, give 2 initial rescue breaths, and then you check again. If there's no sign, you repeat sequence. And remember, for any emergency you are going into, you must always call for help. You must always call your emergency number. Our national emergency number is 112. It's toll-free. So for any emergency you are responding to, you first call for help. So certain things may make you to stop CPR. We are now in a session we are learning normal ratio of CPR for adults is 32. The last one I compressed, on hitting the 11th count, the guy jets, and I stopped and placed him in recovery position. Now you are compressing an adult and maybe on the 5th count, the adult jet, and you start wait, it's many 25, it's many 25. What you are telling that casualty is I brought you out from the dead, I'm sending you back. So even at 1 count, your casualty can respond. So you stop and place in recovery position. Another thing is, if you are tired, you stop CPR also. If you know you are tired, I'm telling you, practical session, someone, it was even at the hospital we discovered the first aider was, the casualty was a first aider. What happened? January this year, that normally everybody fasts and all that. This guy was fasting for 3 whole weeks, and you saw an emergency because he was recently trained. He wanted to go in and give. I saw that this is a live practical he would do. He went in and started compressing this casualty, and he knew his energy level was low. On the first count session sequence, he discovered his energy level was going low. On the second DC, it was automatically going low. But because the whole crowd, like I tell you, many people are always around me, started cheering him, we can see doctor is here, doctor is here. He will soon get up. He felt, he started doing until he collapsed on the casualty. When we came in, we carried him at the casualty. It was at the hospital we discovered that. So if you are tired at any point, you are supposed to stop. You can get people around the environment to assist you do that. It mustn't be you doing everything. For centers are good at delegating duties. And then, if the environment doesn't permit, you're expected to stop CPR also. You go in to save a life and they're telling you, please, please, do not touch this casualty. It's expected as first aiders, you don't go in at all. Because you may not know what have caused that and all that. Last year, December, we have a community in Abuja called UJ Community. 2 teams came to steal goats during the festive season. And one was caught. The other one escaped. And the one that was caught was given the beating of his life until he went into stupor. Someone that was recently trained, just like how you are going to the training, now, saw the guy down and said, this is life practical, and went in. The whole people around started telling, don't touch this guy. He said, why should they leave someone dying this way and not assist the person? He said, you should not touch. He said, if they don't give him the reason, he was even with his first aid certificate, so he started flashing people on the face. If they don't give him reason why he should not touch this casualty, he's going to touch. It was at Gwagwalada Teaching Hospital with his leg hand up. They told him the person he was trying to assist was a thief, and they thought he came in the disguise of a first aider to assist that person. Luckily for him, it was only his leg that was fractured. Maybe he would have gone to heaven. He would have asked, and they asked him why he left the earth so soon. I don't know what he would say that caused him to leave the earth. So sometimes the environment may not permit you to give first aid assistance. You are expected to don't even attempt at all. All right. So we'll talk about defibrillator, and then if there are any questions, we can then ask. So if there's any question, you can ask before we go into defibrillator. Any question?
There's a question from me, Samuel Akuta from Port Harcourt.
Okay.
Yes. What if during the chest compression, we notice that maybe the person has issues with his ribs, and the ribs are cracked? Maybe the person is cool, and the ribs are cracking, like about to break. What steps can we take?
All right. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Now, the question this question always comes up. The question we always ask is it better I compress hard and fracture 2 or 3 ribs and the person gets resuscitated and then the doctors find a way of fixing that? Or I romance the person's chest and then the person dies and we take a full complete ribs to the mortuary? Which one would be a good option to take?
It's all about survival, sir.
Yeah, definitely it will be to at least fracture 1 rib. And for, this, when I was compressing, that was a dummy. But when you touch, if you can just touch your heart, it doesn't matter how strong it is. You can never overcompress the chest of an adult. It's different for a child or an infant. But for the adult, you can never overcompress the chest. The only thing you can do is, maybe at the point of compressing too hard, you may fracture 2 or 3 ribs. But if that person is able, if you are able to resuscitate that person, it's better than leaving that person to go. Which I told you already that what actually resuscitates casualties is the CPR you are doing, because it enables, manually restarts the heart from pumping blood. So for you to achieve that, you must go deep as 1/3 depth for you to achieve that. So it's better you fracture 1 and then the person gets resuscitated than you just do compress without going deep and then the person goes. Because once a casualty is unconscious, his chances of coming back to life are very, very slim. So your CPR must be effective for you to actually put that person consciousness to a lively distance or resuscitate. Hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. I'm fully satisfied. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Summertime, my office is here, safety. We see later. I don't have a card. I'm a small boy now.
Is it a question or someone is talking?
I have an account with you, kiddies.
Okay. If there's no other question, let's move to the AED. Are we together? So we have the AED. It's called the automated external defibrillator. Now, if you have this machine, the only thing the AED will not do for you at the actions of the emergency is check for danger. Immediately you have checked for danger, the AED does all other things that need to be done. One, the machine is a machine that analyzes the casualty's heart rhythm to tell you if the casualty is actually unconscious breathing or unconscious not breathing. The machine has the on and off button. Now, once you press the on button, the machine will instruct you to pull off parts and then place those parts on casualty's chest. If you watch the picture there, this picture here, you can see that one part goes at the upper part of the chest and then one goes below the chest region. You can see even on the parts, they are all indicated where a part should go. So it's easy for you to know where one part should go and one other part should go down. So once these parts are placed in those positions, the next thing you need to do is you allow the machines to give you instructions. Now, for all AEDs manufactured, they have a voice prompt that tells the first aiders step to step what the first aider is supposed to do. Once that starts analyzing, if the casualty is unconscious, still breathing, the machine will tell you to place that person in recovery position. If the casualty is unconscious, not breathing, the machine will tell you to give CPR. Now, this is the CPR. That's where if you're not getting your 1/3 depth, that same machine will tell you wrong CPR, repeat sequence. Once you start your CPR, these parts must still remain on the casualties. These two parts must still remain on the casualty's chest because the machine analyzes as you are giving CPR. If the casualty gets resuscitated when you are giving that CPR, the machine will tell you stop, place in recovery position. This is a rescue bed and all that. Now there's a kind of unconsciousness, how deep it is, that the machine may advise you to apply shock. If you are seeing in movies or when you rush people to ICUs, you discover they have the electronic defibrillators where it's plugged. Those ones are connected to the power supply switch. You see them jamming it and hitting it on the casualty's chest. It's the same machine that is being automated or made easy for first aiders to carry about. For this one, it's movable. You can move it. It has rechargeable batteries. You don't need to connect to any electricity when emergency happens. It has its own batteries that are rechargeable. So you put in and all that. So it may advise you to apply shock. It's always important if the machine advises you to do that. You must stay clear as this man is doing here. You stay clear from that casualty. Because if you press the shock button and your hands are still on the casualty, the machine may send shock into that casualty and then give you real shock, and you receive real shock. And it may even be the casualty that you send the shock into that will get resuscitated and even use the AED on you again to resuscitate you. So to avoid that, you stay clear of that casualty's body when applying such shock so that it doesn't give you the real shock. And if anybody, there are some casualties you see you're attending to, you see the family members are there holding the casualty's hands and all that. It's expected that you tell them to leave at that point when applying the shock. And if the casualty's body is wet, we always, especially casualties that are pulled out from water and all that, you are expected to do what? To dry up that casualty's body before using an AED. If not, if you don't have your maybe a singlet or a clothing material to dry up that casualty's body. It's better you even don't apply shock at all on the casualty, because it's practical. There are some electronics in your house. If your hands are dry, you touch them, you don't receive any shock impact. But when your hands are wet and you touch same electronics, you receive this shocking impact. The machine has an automated voltage sent into the casualty system to resuscitate. But if the body is wet, the voltage may be multiplied and it may be very harmful to the casualty at that point. So the casualty's body must be dry when doing that. And you discover there are some casualties that their body, the chest, especially for male casualties, you see them with hairy chest. This part has adhesive glues that glue to the casualty's chest. So for that to stick to the chest and make the part to analyze well, you have to scrape that part at which you are placing the part so that the machine can analyze well, especially for casualties who have hairy chest. So most of these AEDs come with razor blades or shaving sticks to aid you scrape that part. Now, it doesn't mean you go and turn the barber because we say scrape chest and you go and scrape someone's full chest. The person wakes up, may ask you where his hair has gone. And you may have to explain to the person where the hair has gone. So to avoid such questions, just scrape the part at which you are placing the part. So even if the person recovers, you can tell the person why that part of his hair was scraped, especially for male casualties who value their hair on the chest very well. So I will just show you a practical illustration of the AED, so you can see how the machine works. All right. All right. I hope you can all see me. So this is an AED, as you can all see. If you check this AED, it has two buttons here. We have the on button, and then this is the shock button, like I said earlier. And this is the pad compartment. Now, once these are the rechargeable batteries, like I told you. Once you want to use this, you turn at the battery compartment and insert it. Once you insert,
self-test. In case of emergency, press the green on-off button.
Which is this button. You press it.
Begin by removing all clothing from the patient's chest.
You remove
Cut
clothing.
clothing if needed.
That will give you the next instruction.
When patient's chest is bare, look carefully at the pictures on the white adhesive pads.
These are the pictures.
Peel one pad from the yellow plastic liner.
So you can see it here. These are the pads. You can see even on the pads, it's already.
Look carefully at the pictures on the white adhesive pads.
It's already shown.
Peel one pad from the yellow plastic.
So you can see from the pads here, it's already shown where to place. So it's easy for you to know where to place this. So from here you pull, this is where you pull it. You pull this end out and pull this one also out, and then you stick it to the casualty's chest as displayed on the pads for you to see. So once you do this, now these pads are only used once on casualties, this particular pad. So since you don't have a live casualty to use it for now, we won't use this part because it's very costly. But once you peel this off, like I said, you place one here and the other one low. And then the machine now starts analyzing to tell you if the casualty is unconscious breathing or not. If the casualty is unconscious breathing, now the machine will tell you to place the casualty in recovery position. And you do that. Now, if you watch the battery compartment, we have this. If the machine is not in use, you place this at this point where you have this, and then you insert the battery so it doesn't run down your battery. But if you want to use it, you have to remove this off, and then you insert your battery, and then it starts working.
Self-test. In case of emergency, Press the green.
So do we have any question on AED? Any question? Okay, if you don't have questions, let's go to our slide again. Let's log into Slido again. Let's go to slido.com again. So once you reach there, you can enter your name now and then wait for the quiz. So we just test our knowledge on what we have learned so far. Slido.com, you enter the code 510862. Okay, we have Kazim Abubakar just joined. Let's have more people join. Okay, we have Samuel joined. We have Chizaram joined. I think we are 10, so if we can have up to 7 people start. So you go to your normal web browsers, Chrome, Opera Mini. If you are using an iPhone, you go to your Safari and all that. You type in.
Please, tell Babuba mic is on and is distracting, please.
Okay.
Tell Babuba Lawan, his mic is on and it's distracting.
Let me turn it off. I saw you raised your hand. We still have only 3 people, and we have 10 people in the room. I know others are from my office, but at least 7 people should join so we can start. Okay, we have 4 people now. Abdullah Ibrahim, Bashari, Rukaya, we are waiting for you to join also. And Thomas, we are waiting for you also to join. Okay, maybe because of our time, we'll just start. All right, so questions will be played on the screen. What you're expected to do is you click on the right one and then you click send immediately. You click on the right question and then you click send. The quiz works with timing. The more faster you have to take a decision, the faster you'll be on the leaderboard. So you click the right answer and then you send immediately. All right, so we are starting. Aims of first aid include all except. That means there's an option that is not supposed to be there. Aims of first aid include all except. Aims of first aid include all except. Okay, let's see our correct answer. Okay, the correct answer is there. Let's see our leaderboard. Okay, we have Chizaram leading now. Let's go to the next question. Okay. CPR stands for what? CPR stands for what? CPR stands for what? CPR stands for what? All right, let's see the correct answer. Okay, let's see our leaderboard. Okay, still have Samuel and Kazim following up on Chizaram. Let's go to our next question now. Dr. ABCD stands for what? 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 Okay. All right, let's see. Means everybody got it right. Okay. Let's move to the next question. What is the ratio of CPR for adult? What is the ratio of CPR for adult? What is the ratio of CPR for adult? What is the ratio of CPR for adults? Okay, let's see. 32, that's 30 chest compressions, 2 rescue breaths. Yes. Let's see our leaderboard. Okay, Chizaram is still leading. Let's move to our next question. The following are responsibilities of a first aider, except the following are responsibilities of a first aider, except the following are responsibilities of a first aider, except okay. All right, drug administration. You remember that I didn't mention anything drug throughout my session. So drug administration is correcting. Okay, Samuel and Kazim still following up, and Chidima. Okay, let's move to the next question. AED stands for what? AED stands for what? AED stands for what? Okay, automated external defibrillator. Got it. Let's see our leaderboard. All right, Chizaram still there somewhere. Kazim, okay. Let's go forward. The acronym LLF, when checking for breathing, stands for what? The acronym LLF, when checking for breathing, stands for what? The acronym LLF, when checking for breathing, stands for what? The acronym LLF, when checking for breathing, stands for what? Okay, look, listen, and feel. Let's see, correct. Look, listen, and feel. Okay, let's go. Next question. In order of priority, who are you to attend to first in an emergency? In order of priority, who are you to attend to first in an emergency? Okay, let's go forward. Good. Like we said, rightly said, the unconscious casualty. Okay, let's move forward. The second to the last question. What is the ratio of CPR for infants? 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 Good. So let's see, our ratio is you give 5 rescue breaths, 30 chest compressions, and 2 rescue breaths. Let's see our leaderboard. Okay. Now our last question, so we know the winner. Like I told you earlier, fastest finger. What is the CPR hand placement for adults, children, and infants? Last question. What is the CPR hand placement for adults, children, and infants? What is the CPR hand placement for adults, children, and infants? What is the CPR hand placement for adult? Okay. Perfect. Adult is 2 hands, children is 1 hand, and infant is 2 fingers. Let's see who won. Okay, congratulations, Samuel. Congratulations, Samuel. So the rest of the class is going to take Samuel out for lunch. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Hope we enjoyed the quiz.
Yeah.
Congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the quiz. It was nice.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move forward. We have just 2 more topics at the end for today. All right. So you can all see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just, we are on choking now. Let me ask this question. At the end of the session today, Samuel won the quiz and decided that he wanted to take all of us for to go and eat roasted fish. And then Kazim suggested he knew a very good place in town. And then Abdullahi said he would top up the money for Samuel so they can get the fish. So on reaching there, because Samuel has not eaten the fish in Kazim's joint, decided to eat the whole flesh and then test the bone to see if the ingredients went into the bone. At the point of Samuel doing that, the bone got stuck in his throat. And we're all there. How are we going to dislodge that bone in Samuel's throat? Any suggestion? Any suggestion? You can just unmute and talk.
Well, there's a local way of swallowing a bar. There's a local way when we swallow a bar, it pushes down the bone. Yeah, that's just what I know.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've heard of that numerous times. Okay. Now, many people will say, some will say, what they say is do manual operation, like they will go with their hand inside the person's throat and pull off the bone. Or cause they do put one finger and make sure you vomit. I discover people who they even give that a bath, you see how their eyes start rolling with pain because of the pain associated with it. Now we have 2 kinds of choking. There's mild choking and there's severe choking. When it's mild, maybe you are eating pepperish food, even the water you take, sometimes because of reflex actions on the trachea, it tends to choke you. So you can even choke on water. But for such ones, we call them mild choking. The only thing you need to do is give little water and then the person gets resuscitated. But when it becomes severe, it means a solid substance like the bone, bead, and all that is at the trachea. So if you give someone a manual operation, you may end up pushing that bone down. We always encourage you don't do that to such casualties. You don't give them a bar, because the last time, that last year March, they gave someone, his own was good bone, he took and they gave him some more. And immediately he took that inside. The bone went and pierced on his intestine. And there was nothing they could do than operate part of that intestine. So whatsoever assistance you are giving, you must ensure the casualty is, you must ensure whatsoever assistance you are giving doesn't take that substance down the system but brings it out. So I will do a practical illustration of it. I'll do a practical illustration of that, so you can see how to control choking easily without having damage the casualty trachea and all that. So you can all see my camera, right? So this is our casualty. What I'll tell the casualty to do is to bend. I'll tell the casualty to bend first. Bend very well. And with the head down. What I will do first is to encourage this casualty to cough. If the casualty coughs and that thing doesn't come up, then I'll engage what we call the 5-bar blues. Now, the 5-bar blues is not the one when you are angry, you start engaging with it. With your hand folded this way, at the center of the 2 shoulder blades, this is the 2 shoulder blades. At the center here is where you engage, hitting upwards. So you bend this casualty this way, and then you hit 5 times upward. I'm only simulating, but you're supposed to hit hard. If I should hit hard, everything you are hitting today will come out. So you hit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As you are hitting, you are checking. Because once you do that 5-bar blues, it causes a vibration on the trachea that expands it voluntarily. So whatsoever is there comes out without having the trachea walls. And this person is already facing down this way. Now, if that doesn't work, you still tell the person to bend. And then you go with one of your legs and open up the casualty's legs this way. And then you go up with your 2 hands this way, take it this way, and then you create a grip. You can see one of my knuckle is popping up. This knuckle is popping up. So that's what you use in engaging the casualty's level with your legs down this way. So you go this way below the abdomen and you thrust upwards. We call it abdominal thrust. So you thrust upwards 5 times. If you know that some casualties that are novel is very hard for you to locate. But once your hands are below the abdomen and you drag upwards, there's every tendency of that casualty of your knuckle brushing that casualty's navel. The navel is also connected to the trachea. So once you do that, it induces vomiting. So once anything is here, the trachea expands and then throw it out for you to for the casualty to be free. Now you continue with this in sequence while calling for help. If you have done this for 3 sequence and the casualty is not responding, then you can call for you call for help and start evacuating that casualty to the nearest medical facility. Now, the abdominal thrust is not done for pregnant women. That's why we always advise first aiders to always communicate with their casualties. If your casualty is pregnant, to ask a female casualty that is pregnant, we always advise don't engage abdominal thrust. You can just continue with only 5-bar blues, and that will be fine. And then, please, it doesn't mean you start asking male casualties, are you pregnant? Men don't get pregnant. They only have pot belly. So the question is only for female casualties. So that's what you do for choking. Now let's go to drowning. Now for drowning, we said according to the World Health Organization, drowning is defined as the process of experiencing respiratory impairment from submersion, immersion in liquid. Drowning outcomes should be classified as resulting in death. Most drowning occur within a short distance of safety and can be prevented. Yes, if nothing is done, it's easy for someone to die while drowning. But as skilled first aiders, there are so many ways or so many things that could cause casualties to drown. There are so many things that could cause boating accident, diving, illicit drug use, inability to swim, and all that. You don't know how to swim, and then you go in. We had an issue like that. I had a friend who we went to a commercial pool to swim. He has never been in water before. The next thing, and you know, in commercial pools, there are sections to the pools, the ones that are deep and the ones that are for beginners that you can stay, the shallow edges. He went in just because children were at the shallow edges. He went into where the deeper side where the adults were swimming. Only just in 2 minutes, he started drowning. And the same children he was running out from were the ones laughing at him. So it's important, if you don't know how to swim, it's better you stay where the children are and swim with them rather than going at the deeper side. And there are so many things, signs you should notice if someone is drowning. If someone is playing up his hands this way in water, you should suspect that person is drowning. If someone is lying face down in water, you should suspect that person is drowning. If someone is calling for help, it's expected you should suspect that person is drowning. Now, there are two different things between knowing how to swim and knowing how to rescue people in drowning. There are two different things. Because I know how to swim doesn't mean I will know how to rescue someone in water. What happens is, anybody that is drowning and sees anything coming, he gets hold of it and his whole life depends on it. So if you are someone who doesn't know how to swim and someone is drowning and you rush in that way to assist, the person may grab you and then that's the two of you will be going. So always advise, even for drowning courses, safety water courses you go to, they'll tell you you are supposed to approach from the back, push the casualty, go down again, push until the person reaches a shallow edge. Then from there, at least your head is coming above the water, you can come out. Instead of sorry, do we? Is someone unmuted? Okay. So you're expected to do what? To notice these signs once they happen. And there's little.
Hello, instructor, please. Can you mute Thomas Adamu from your end?
Okay.
And can you mute him? He has the noise from his background has been disturbing us throughout the training. Please mute him from your end.
Okay, he's muted now. Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
Please go ahead.
All right. So you have no, as a skilled first aider, you have nothing to, you have no business going into the water to just go and rescue somebody because you know how to swim. Once you notice these signs, it's either you extend, because we lost a life trainer, someone who has been training internationally on water safety and all that, but they lost him on his birthday. What happened? He was in the pool, he drank so much alcohol, and then, you know, depending on how your body could absorb alcohol, if it is too much for the system, it weakens the system. He took so much alcohol that it weakened the system, and if you are someone who swims, you know that swimming takes a lot of energy. You need energy to swim. And he was in water, and then he started drowning and displaying all this uneven swimming movement. And instead of his friends to rush in and help, they were rather clapping for him, thinking he had started a new swimming move. Or until when he went down to the water, up to 3 minutes, nobody, until someone raised an alarm that it looks like this guy is drowning. And before they could pull him out, it was long gone. So it's even better as skilled first aiders, if someone is doing that in water, it's better you rush in to assist. Let the person be the one to tell you, no, I'm the one doing this. Then you know you are okay with that. If not, it's better you rush in to help. So you don't end up losing someone because you didn't take cognizance of these signs. So as a skilled first aider, if you don't know how to swim, there are little ways you can assist. You can extend a stick to that person. What happens is when people are drowning or they're in a water body and their feet are not touching the ground, they are very light. It's when you start pulling them to a shallow edge, you start feeling the weight. So you can even drag them to a shallow edge, and then you can even go in with yourself and then pull the person out. If you don't have a long stick to do that and you have a rope, you can also extend the rope to the casualty. If it is a commercial pool, they have safety nets or tubes. You can extend it to the casualties to save them. It's always important, if you have all these tools around, you do that. If not, you call for help. Because I'll end the drowning session with this story. Something happened. If you are popular with the Lagos, if you have been to Lagos, there's a popular beach called the Elegushi Beach. And if you watch that beach, it's a commercial beach, but it has a section that they use rocks and then a red lining to mark danger zone and then where people go swim. There was this lady that was supposed to get married to his fiancé just 2 weeks to their marriage. The lady all through her life have been swimming and she knew how to swim very well. But the guy all through his life have never been to any water body. And then 2 weeks to their wedding, the lady said, let them go to Elegushi Beach and then swim. The guy said, if he's there, he's not going to swim. He said, yes, okay. So they went. On reaching there, you know, at the commercial section, that's where you see many people there, and then you see the safety guards there watching for those who don't know how to swim but still want to be in water in case anything happens. But at the danger zone, because nobody is allowed to go there, their searchlight was not there. So this lady told his fiancé that he doesn't want where people are much, that he wants to go and swim at the danger zone. He went there, and you know how ocean current works, comes in and then goes another. And then they started swimming, and then he started swimming. This guy already told him he can't swim, stayed on his own. A large wave came when she was swimming, took her to the deeper side where she was unable to swim again. And then she started calling for the same guy who never knew how to swim to assist. This guy now saying, my soon-to-be wife is dying. Let me rush in and help. He rushed in to assist. And what was happening? The lady get hold of her, not that she deliberately and wanted to kill this guy. She would climb on top of the guy's shoulders, and then the guy was down taking water while she was up taking oxygen. I knew that was just survival instinct, not that she wanted to kill the guy on purpose. Until the safety guards noticed what was happening at the far danger zone and then rushed in to assist. And they're able to pull the two of them out of the water. But the guy was long gone. He died, and the lady survived. And now the lady is married with 4 kids. So you could imagine, emotions could play sometimes in emergency, but always advise as skilled first aiders, you don't just endanger your life because a loved one is there. If he had called for help from those safety guards, maybe they would have rescued that lady and the two of them would have been married now. But life continues. The lady was too young to say because she has lost someone dear to her, she will stay unmarried. She's married with 4 kids now. So always advise skilled first aiders. If you don't know how to swim, never go into water to save. Rather call for help for those who can do that. If not, extend sticks, extend ropes or safety tubes or safety nets if it is a commercial tool. And then, when people are pulled from the water, 2 things happen. It's either they are unconscious breathing or they're unconscious not breathing. Many people have gone because of this effect. Someone is pulled out from the water, and the next thing you see people on the stomach compressing. And the last one was that happened at on the Chahai Bridge. When someone was pulled from the water, they started compressing the guy's stomach until blood started coming out from the nose and mouth, and the guy was long gone. Definitely, like we said earlier, you don't compress the chest of someone who is still breathing. Now, if you have seen this children balloon, if the balloon is flat and you hit it, it will never burst. But when you infuse air into the balloon, you see that if you touch it or just hit it hard, you see it bursting. That's what happens to the cells of the body. Our cells are all beneath our skin, and these cells survive on oxygen. And what keeps them functioning is the lungs, which is the engine room for the oxygen you take. So when water gets in, when you are in water, and then water gets into the lungs and blocks that engine room, you see the cells, instead of absorbing oxygen, they start absorbing water from the surrounding instead of the oxygen. And that's why when you see people pulled out from the water, you see their body swollen and all that. It means the cells have absorbed water and all that. You start pressing their body on pressing their body, you end up busting those cells. And you see that sometimes the negative effect may not happen immediately, but at a long run, maybe when at an old age, a virus that may have hit your body, that your body immune system will fight against, you discover because you have busted or killed those cells at the early stage of your life, they will not be there to fight that. The COVID-19 that came, some people got it and recovered. Why some got it in the space of 1 to 2 weeks, they gave up because their immune system was too low to fight such disease. It could be what, maybe eating habit or things they have done to their body system that killed some cells that would have been at that old age to fight that. So it's always important. If someone is put out from the water and you discover that person is still breathing, the right thing to do is to place that person in recovery position. I told you the scenario where someone had got chin-chin in her mouth, and I placed her in recovery position and she threw it up in recovery position. The same thing happens to people who are drowned and you pulled out. Once they are placed in those positions and their trachea is opened and breathing starts, that water in the lungs comes out on its own, and you see the cells on their own discharge the water and start absorbing normal oxygen as they normally do. So it's not in your position to start pressing people's body. I saw a YouTube video where someone was doing CPR on the stomach. CPR is not done on the stomach. It's cardiac. It has to do with the heart. That's why we say it's on the heart you compress. So if a casualty is pulled out from the water and is unconscious, not breathing, the next thing you need to do is to compress the casualty's chest and not the stomach to resuscitate the person. So let's move forward. This is our last topic and we end the session. We have wounds and bleeding. There's this question people always ask, that for bleeding to take place, there must be wounds. It's not in all cases. There are two exemptions. Natural nose bleeding comes without any wound. And then menstruation in women also comes without wound. The natural nose bleeding happens when maybe due to allergy. There are some people that can't stay where there's too much noise. Some can't stay, cannot even come into what's it called, a filling station. And then others, if there's a loud explosion or it's too dusty, you see their brain misrepresents signals and sparks out blood. And the nearest orifices to the brain is the nose. That's why you see them bleeding from the nose, not that they have a cut or so on the nose. We'll talk about nose bleeding, but let's look at these types of wounds here. We have contused wounds, injury caused from a force or blow. You see someone gives you a hard blow and beneath your skin, you see a turn on that. When the blood vessels under the skin are broken, it could cause contused wound. We have lacerated when the tissue is torn irregularly. We have incised when the tissue is cut by a sharp object, maybe a razor blade, another a sharp object. Punctured wound happens mostly by sharp objects like nails and all that, needles and all that. Then gunshot, there could be internal damage. The entry is always little, but the exit is large. Once you sight that kind of wound and bleeding on the casualties, you suspect a gunshot injury. Abrasion happens when there's the tender rough. It's always usually the topmost layer of the skin is scraped out. It happens mostly to players doing slide tackles and all that, or maybe you are entering a very tight corner and then your body mistakenly brushes this thing. We call it first degree. It's just the top layer is affected. So let's look at this picture. We can see it more here. Incised, tissue cut, lacerated, the tissue is cut irregularly, and then graze, we have bruised wound, just the top layer, punctured, a needle piercing in, and then gunshot. Now, for anything bleeding, we have minor bleeding and major bleeding. If it's a major bleeding, it means the blood volume is high. But it's a minor bleeding, you see just a pinch of blood coming out and all that. For minor cuts, what we always advise is you clean with disinfectants. Like I said earlier, you don't use spirit and all that to pour on fresh wounds. What you use is just your disinfectant. You clean the out, what you say, you clean out, because once you dip your first cutting wound in the disinfectant, we have Savilon, Purite, and all that Dettol used as disinfectant. Once you dip, you don't just take the first cutting wound directly on the casualty's hand. You do what we call out-to-out cleaning. That's you clean the surface first, so that you disinfect the surface before taking the third cutting wound to clean the surface. And once it's clean, you see some people, that's when they use that plaster in the kit to now cover the wound and help cook the wound. You don't use plasters directly on. What you use is gauze bandage that has a net-like material. You just place the gauze on the affected part after disinfecting, and then you use that bandage to hold the edges rather than covering the surface. For a minor wound to heal, it needs ventilation to heal faster. So you don't cook it by placing your plaster on the wound. You rather use the gauze and then you hold edges. Though there are some gauze plasters now where there's an opening at the center. If you have such a plaster, a gauze plaster, you can just cover it because at the center there's an opening to allow for air to penetrate. But once it's a major bleeding, what do? We say you elevate the affected part. Elevate the affected part, and then you pad and then you bandage. That's what stops major bleeding. Elevate the affected part. If the part is lowered, you fight with more blood. But once it's elevated, you fight with less blood. So you elevate, pad, and then you bandage. And then there are some people who ask, what if the bandage is soaked with blood? What do? What you need to do is you don't just remove the bandage that have been placed earlier. You can get another bandage and add to what is there and still bandage. Don't remove and then place a new one. No. You rather add more bandages and then on the padding and then you bandage. Then in cases where you have embedded objects, maybe someone stabs someone with a knife and runs away, we always advise don't remove that object. What you need to do is you pad around the affected area, because that material that has gone through the skin is serving as a support. If you drag it out, it will end up cutting ligaments and tissues that were not damaged at the initial end. And if you pull it out, you fight with more blood. So what we advise you do is pad around the object and you quickly evacuate to the nearest medical facility. Even in the hospitals, they will never just come and remove this knife. They will have to run a scan to know from where to push this knife out in order not to damage more ligaments or tissues on the casualty's hand or leg or whichever area that knife has gone to or the sharp object has gone to. So you don't do that. This is what you do. Now for nose bleeding, we always advise in nose bleeding, you don't tell the casualties to go up, to stick their necks up, or to bring it, lower it down. No. What you tell the casualties to do is to stick out the neck. If I watch this popular video that was circulating online, where they call focus dance, that focus dance, when the chin is out, that's what we call sticking out of the neck. So once it's out, with the index finger, you pinch the nose and release. You pinch and release the nose. And then you encourage the casualty to breathe from the mouth. If the casualty is breathing from the mouth, then you get a cold compress and you apply on the forehead. That cuts off that natural nose bleeding without having to harm the casualty. So if you encourage that casualty to take the head up, what you are indirectly doing is the blood will go back in and induce choking. If you tell the person to go down, you may fight with more blood. So the person only sticks out the neck. With your index finger, you pinch and release the nose, and you encourage the casualty to breathe from the mouth while applying cold compress. Thank you all very much. So if there are any general questions, you can ask. Any general question on what we have done so far? You can just unmute and you talk. Okay. Is someone speaking? Okay. So if there's no question, can we go to slido.com again? Let's go to slido.com again. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, we want to know how well you have understand the topics we treated today so far. So you just click on the level you feel you have understood the topic so far. So go back to slido.com, just click on the level you think you have understood the topic so far. Okay, we have a response. Can we have like 2 responses so we know? Good. All right. 1 respond. Can we have at least 4 responses so we move forward? So you have to go to your browser, type slido.com. If you are in before, we just have 1 response. Let's have 3 or 4 responses. All right, so we take this, okay. We have 2 responses now. Okay, let's have 1 more and then we'll move. All right. Okay. All right. So from the responses now, from the training you have had now, we have ended the session. Thank you all for participating. can just tell us what's the most valuable thing you have learned today. Just put it in wordings and let's see it. What's the most valuable thing you learned today? Just put it in a sentence. The most valuable thing you have learned today. All right, that's fine. Okay. Thank you all very much for participating. We have come to the end of this session. If there's no general question, we'll end the session. Any question? Can unmute and talk. Hello, can you hear me? It seems to have more responses coming in now. I learned how to use AED. I've learned how to rescue life in event of emergency, like accident, drowning, and children convulsion through severity, identification, and CPR. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all very much for participating. From the responses, it means our aim or our outcome was achieved. Thank you all. If you have a question, you can ask. If not, we'll end the session now.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Kazim.
I wanted to ask this question in the event of emergency of accident. Sometimes you will see you have a patient who has suffered a kind of broken legs or hands, and sometimes a first aider would like to convey or take that patient into ambulance. And I was once told briefly by someone that you are not just to come out like what the people do, just come and carry the chest and just push somebody into the ambulance. I thought there's going to be a little way of practical of how to like carry a broken someone. Sometimes you have one person will have a broken leg, some twice the legs will be, or the two legs will be broken, or one. So how do you carry such a kind of patients?
All right, thank you very much. For such, that's fracture. For anything fracture, we always advise you have to first immobilize that affected part. And by immobilization, I mean you have to hold the affected part still first before moving that casualty. And how do you do that? You can get your bandages, triangular bandage to be precise, and then you get your splints. Splints could be wooden materials with smooth edges. You could either use with smooth edges or rough edges, but we always advise if you are using splints that have rough edges to hold affected fractured parts, you must bandage those rough splints with a bandage before putting it to the skin. So at the point of tying, you don't end up damaging the casualty skin. So what you do is, let me just do on my video so you can see. You can see what I'm talking about. So if a casualty has fracture, like let's say here, you get those splints and put here, and then you put it somewhere again, and then you tie, from this end. So if let's say this is the seat of the injury, you don't tie on this affected part, but you put the splints this way, and then you tie to hold this part still. Now, if it is the legs, that is affected, what you do is, let's see, if it's the lower leg, you still put the splints this way, and then you tie. But there are some casualties that you discover this leg and this leg is affected. So in those cases, you have to put the legs together. If it is these sides that are affected, you tie an end at the center here. But if, let's say maybe someone has fracture from the lower leg up to the upper leg here, definitely that person cannot walk. So, and you cannot get splints as long as this sometimes. So what you do is you use what we call body splints. If this leg is not affected, you take this leg and join with this one, and then you tie with your triangular bandages until you get to this side. And then you can use a blanket or a stretcher to now carry that person when the whole part is now immobilized. And then you take. But a situation where here is affected, up to the down, then you tie with your triangular bandages and end at the center for transporting that person. So for anything fracture, for you to before you transport, you must hold the part still before you transport. And if it's on the upper arm, you don't tie and put your splint up to the joint level. You put your splint up to this level. Because if you put your splint up to the joint, the hand remains straight and it's painful. So to allow the hands to move, you have to tie an end at this place and then at this place. Thank you very much. Is there any other question? Kazim, hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir, very clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other question? All right. In absence of any other questions, we have come to the end of our training session. What I always advise is first aid, unlike other courses, you can't just listen or view, and then it's there. You have to, on your own, do little practicals at home for you to get more equipped with what we have learned today. Thank you all very much. See you.
Please, sir, I hope we get the presentations.
Yes, it will be sent to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. See you soon some other time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and nice presentation. Do have a lovely day.
Thank you.